Hey everyone, Yoyston here, and I hope you all are doing well, wherever you are in Middle-earth. So, it's no secret that the Amazon Rings of Power show has drawn a lot of controversy recently, and while there are valid reasons to be concerned and excited both, I wanted to make a different kind of video about it, looking at those who are likely to be the main characters of the show, and what we should expect from their deeds of the Second Age, and look for in the show, based on what happens in the canon. Of course, I have no idea about some of these characters in the show, who they will be or their lore. For some of them will likely be original characters who aren't even from Tolkien's canon. For video regarding my hopes and fears for the show overall, I have another video for you to check out, linked in the description and cards. Now, this video will only cover some of the major things to look out for with these characters, so for my other videos about them and their lore, check those out as well. My friends, thank you all so much for joining me today. Let's begin our tale. First and foremost, our protagonist, or at least one of them, will be Galadriel. While it seems they will reference her earlier days from the First Age and Years of the Trees, and may even add in her brother Finrod or others to the show, I'm unsure of how many rights they actually have to these works, but to summarize, Galadriel, though not evil-hearted like Feanor nor as hasty, still wished to leave Valinor to rule her own realm. She was an ambitious elf, and the Valar regarded her as a special case, not welcoming her back as soon as they did others. But in the First Age, she would learn a great deal from Melian the Maia, meet her husband Celeborn, and leave Doriath, the realm of Thingol, before its destruction. She would come to Eastern Middle-earth, or just Middle-earth as it was called after the end of the First Age, and destruction of Beleriand. She would wander from Lindon to Nanuiel or Evendim, to Eregion, to Lothlorien, or Lindoranond as it was called in those days, to Rivendell, to Ethelond, or near the docks of the elves in the Bay of Belfalas. Now, I'm not sure how much Celeborn and their daughter Celebrian will be included in the show, but they follow a very similar path, with Celeborn diverging from Galadriel and Celebrian before the fall of Eregion, as he did not wish to cross through Moria and deal with the dwarves, and he rather stayed in Eregion. Next, we will most definitely be seeing Gil-galad, the last High King of the Noldor, either the son of Fingon or Orodreth, who ruled his kingdom of elves in Eriador from his seat in Lindon, near the Grey Havens, after having escaped the evils of the First Age. Gil-galad would allow Celebrimbor to go forth and establish a realm of elves in Eregion, and he would allow for Galadriel and Celeborn to wander as they would. He had help in ruling his realm from Círdan, Elrond, and later Glorfindel. Now, Gil-galad's original kingdom spanned across much of Eriador, before the Arnorians arrived. Gil-galad would be suspicious of Annatar, and ended up fighting against Sauron in later wars. He befriended many Númenóreans, such as Tar Aldarion, Tar Ministir, Elendil, Isildur, Anarion, and others. Eventually, Gil-galad would stand against Sauron at the end of the age, and he would perish as he fought against the Dark Lord with his spear Aiglos, alongside his friend Elendil. Recently, they have released a picture of Celebrimbor, who will be central to much of the sorrow and drama of the show, I would imagine. After he escaped Nargothrond and Beleriand before their destruction, he would come to the lands we know as Middle-earth, and would come to settle in Eregion, being the lord there, and the lord of Eregion's capital, Ostin Ethil. As the grandson of Feanor, he led the great ring-crafters of Eregion and the guild they formed, but his ambition to create led him to trust and follow the teachings of Sauron in the guise of Annatar. He helped create the rings of dwarves and men, and then, on his own, separately from Sauron, Celebrimbor created the 3 elven rings of power, untouched by Sauron's evil but still subservient to Sauron's one ring. He would send these 3 to be kept by Gil-galad, Círdan the Shipwright, and Galadriel, the last of whom it seemed he had some feelings for during the Second Age. Sauron would raise an army, destroy the elven smiths, and torture and slay Celebrimbor, taking the rings of men and dwarves from this land of Eregion. Of course, Elrond will play a major role in the show as well. During the Second Age, Elrond served as Gil-galad's chief servant, vice-regent, and herald. He led Gil-galad's armies to Eregion to fight back Sauron. He joined up with Celeborn and his army, and they were all pushed back to the Trollshaws during the War of the Elves and Sauron, where Elrond founded Imladris or Rivendell. Elrond then became the vice-regent under Gil-galad and master of Rivendell, where would be the chief stronghold of the elves in northeastern Eriador, since Eregion was destroyed. He attended the White Council, met and fell in love with Celebrian, carried Gil-galad's ring Vilya after the High King gave it to him, and was Gil-galad's herald during the War of the Last Alliance. He was there when Sauron and his king fell. Now, other elves from the books will probably be featured as well, but I'm not sure how heavily, or if they'll just be cameos. While I imagine Círdan the Shipwright and Glorfindel might and really should show up, I'm not sure how important they will end up being in the show, while others, such as Kings Amdir and Amroth of Loranond, or Orifer and Thranduil of Greenwood or Mirkwood, respectively, might have cameos, especially in later seasons. I doubt they will play as big of roles as the aforementioned elves. Moving to dwarves, it seems the show is actually going to put a lot of emphasis on them, which is cool. But many of these will be original characters, it seems. One that is from the book, but we don't get a lot about him, is Durin III of Khazad-dûm, who may be combined with the other Durins, or the father of Durin IV, due to time compression, will receive the Dwarven Ring of Power for the Longbeards, and likely Durin IV will fight against Sauron in the War of the Last Alliance at the end of the Age. Even in the canon, we do not know a lot about these characters and the other dwarves during the Second Age. Of the Harfoots, or Hobbit stand-in characters, there is little to tell. The Harfoots are actually one of the 3 sub-races of hobbits, but hobbits at large don't really start showing up until the Third Age, but it's possible that they'll do something with their ancestors, as other Lord of the Rings-inspired stories have, but we'll see. Likely we'll just get a lot of original characters, like we will with some dwarves, elves, and men. Now we come to the Númenóreans. While there are many Númenóreans that I assume will be left out of the show, even important ones like Elros, Tar Aldarion, and others, perhaps they'll be mentioned, but I assume they'll be left out. Elendil the Tall will certainly play a sizable role in the show. In the books, Elendil, elf friend, led the faithful remnants of Númenóreans from the island to Middle-earth, and established the kingdoms of Arnor and Gondor under his high rule. With his legendary sword Narsil, Elendil and his friend Gil-galad would stand together against Sauron, and would fall to bring him down. Elendil's son Isildur will also play a large role, it seems, but his brother Anarion will hopefully at least be a cameo, as I do like the Brotherhood relationships in Tolkien's world. Isildur, like in the books, should play a strong role in opposing the evil Númenóreans, the Kingsmen, by saving a sapling of the White Tree to bring to Middle-earth. He would also establish Gondor with his brother as their kingdom, and Minas Ithil, later named Minas Morgul, as Isildur's city. Of course, he and his sons should play a large role against Sauron, and in the end, Isildur will take the One Ring by cutting it from Sauron's finger with the broken blade of his father, Narsil. Finally, among men, King Ar-Pharazôn the Golden, the last king of Númenor, should play as a major antagonist in the series. He was arrogant and evil, taking his cousin to wife and taking the throne from her, capturing Sauron only to be corrupted by the Dark Lord, leading to Ar-Pharazôn allowing for the White Tree of Númenor to be cut down, and for human sacrifice in the name of Morgoth to happen in the land of Númenor. This ended with Ar-Pharazôn leading a fleet to invade Valinor in the attempt to take immortality for himself. Hopefully Ar-Pharazôn in the show would be able to bring out more of the divine aspects of Middle-earth, especially as they relate to men and mortality. Now finally, we come to a pivotal character in the show, who should play nearly as big a role as the protagonist in the series, Sauron, or Annatar, the Lord of Gifts. Sauron starts the Second Age by establishing himself in Mordor, before going on to disguise himself as an emissary of the Valar named Annatar, the Lord of Gifts, and coming to the Elves, ending up in Eregion and teaching the Smiths ring crafting. Finally, after the creation of the Great Rings, he returns to Mordor and Mount Doom to forge his own, as to dominate the minds of the wearers of the rings. But they realize they were deceived, and Sauron realizes Celebrimbor forged 3 other rings outside of his direct influence, but still under the power of his One Ring. Since his original plan did not work, he spends the rest of the age fighting against the elves, taking the rings, giving them to men, which created the Nazgul, and giving them to dwarves. He would be defeated by the Númenóreans in the First War, the War of the Elves and Sauron. He then deceived the Númenóreans, and Ar-Pharazôn in particular, bringing that island and those people to ruin, before returning to Mordor and making his war on the faithful men from Númenor and the Elves, the War of the Last Alliance, losing it in the end, and having his ring taken from him, setting the stage for the events of The Lord of the Rings. Even if there is a time compression in the show, all of these events that Sauron takes part in should be included, in my opinion. And so there we have it. In my mind, these will be the main characters who are likely to appear in the Rings of Power series, and what we can hopefully expect from them in regards to their canon counterparts. Again, the show has been in some rough waters recently, to say the least, and to be honest, I've been kind of avoiding talking much about it until we get some trailers or teasers, and then we actually get episodes of the show. But we have no idea quite yet how good or bad it could be, and so I'm going to continue to approach it with an open mind, even if I'm cautiously optimistic, But regardless of the quality of the show, it will provide us an interesting chance to look at the canon counterparts and how great the characters, settings, and stories are in Tolkien's works versus whatever ends up happening with the show. Please let me know if you'd like me to make other videos similar to this regarding what we might see or will see in the Rings of Power show, and then the canon counterparts. Thank you so much. And thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed, please hit that like button and share this with a friend. What are your thoughts on these characters, and if or how we will see them in the show? I think, especially in regards to the rights they have and don't have, they do not have to show everything I discussed here today, but I think the characters in the show should still reflect the same themes, writing, and purposes they have in Tolkien's books. Thanks to our Valor tier patrons, Cal Wetzel, Peter Shepard, Jonathan Putnam, Mark Kralik, Blair Scout, Merton, John Hume, Sam McBee, Matt Sabach, Elizabeth Calvert, Maz Gibbs, Reese Jenkins, Adam Petrolik, Brandon Glidden, Molly Sullivan, Daniel Burns, Anthony Harmon, Dorwin Gray, Arthur, and Merlin. Thank you all so much, and thanks to all of our patrons and YouTube members. It really means a lot. Please subscribe and hit that bell button to join the Men of the West and all of the Free Peoples today. And I'll see you all again on Sunday with that video on the Mouth of Sauron and who he might have been. You all are the best, my friends. Thank you all so much for joining me on this adventure. Until the next one.